So I want to continue on the line of questioning that Senator Martin began about the governor's mandated universal kindergarten proposal. And of course, kindergarten has always been a local decision for school districts to provide based on the needs of the community, the availability of resources, even the availability of building space. And as a parent who's had children in both half-day and all-day kindergarten programs, I can see the merits of both approaches. However, as a former school board director, this certainly feels like an unfunded mandate being passed on to local taxpayers. And I will say this, you talked about equity. Equity is important, and you referenced childcare. I do not believe that public schools were established to provide childcare to people. I believe that they were established to be platforms for students' future success. And if you're going to look at this, what the research shows is that all-day kindergarten has a dramatic impact, particularly on students in poverty and students who have English as a second language. We haven't really fully realized the full impact of all-day kindergarten programs because those longitudinal studies really have not been completed yet. So I have to say, the number one issue that I hear about are unfunded mandates that lead to higher local school property taxes. And you're sitting here and you're saying you don't know the cost of the proposal, you don't know how much personnel or resources are needed, you haven't really quantified the availability of capital improvements needed, that building space to accommodate the expansion. You haven't said exactly where the funding is coming from this proposal. So again, given the demand that this body address school property tax elimination, I think that a large unfunded mandate that you can't sit here and quantify for us is going to do nothing but drive us further away from the inevitable goal of addressing the heinous local school property tax and just drive those local school property taxes higher. So can you help me understand how we're going to quantify the specifics of this proposal?
So we can quantify some of those numbers in aggregate. I think one of the challenges that I have in trying to discuss the proposal with greater specificity, there are a number of opportunities within the conversation. We know across the Commonwealth there are around 71 LEAs impacted. And we know then through those 71 LEAs, if you have a halftime, as Senator Martin was sharing, if you currently have a halftime, it could mean a double of or...
And I completely understand that, completely.
Yeah. And so I guess where I caution going on the record in quantifying a specific number is because I don't exactly know how much space they have. I don't exactly know what their population shifts considered are, which is why the governor has allowed for this proposal to be part of a longer conversation. So to create a window, a multi-year window, by which we would allow for districts to apply for those hardship exceptions. And so that in that space, I mean, if you have one of those exceptions, if you don't have the personnel, you don't have the space, you don't have the funding, you don't have the need based on projections, we can discuss that.
And I get that, but I really think before you put a massive proposal like this on the table, it should have been quantified and you should have put numbers there before you bring it to the General Assembly, before you make this big public push, because it could be very significant. I want to thank you and your team, especially Angela, on your legislative team in assisting with my Senate Bill 440, which is now Act 64 of 2019. And as you know, this bill provides an option, not a mandate, to schools to implement flexible instructional days. I continue to monitor news outlets across the state to see what's being said about the program. Earlier this week, the North Journal published a story with the headline, "North Hills Gets Good Grades from Parents on Work-at-Home Snow Days." It's received positive news coverage across the nation on media outlets everywhere between Fox National News to People magazine. So what can you tell me about the statewide rollout of this option? Yesterday here, we heard from Secretary Levine about the possible implications of the coronavirus. If the coronavirus does hit the Commonwealth in the proportions of the experiences in other parts of the world, have you thought about using or expanding the flexible instructional days to ensure the continuity of education for our children if a pandemic would strike the Commonwealth?
So we have the data to share, and you know, for you know, by all of our standards in terms of the number of districts qualifying, it's been a great start, a good successful start for flexible instructional days. I'd feel selfish if I shared with you all the good news, but Deputy Secretary Stem has he's been the champion around this and really pushing this across the Commonwealth, as you know. So I'll let him you know, share and share some of the good news.
Sure. So thank you, Senator, for your bill. And our districts really have appreciated the increased flexibility. We had about 88 applications come into us, and we approved the overwhelming majority. I believe we approved 79. We accepted 79 out of the 88 applications, and the only ones that didn't get accepted were ones that were deficient as it relates to the law. So just to affirm that there was nothing that our team added to the process other than what was in the law. And now we're in the monitoring phases. Two things we're doing next. One, we're monitoring, so we have the surveys that are going to be going out in April as required under the statute, and we'll get those results back to help inform our process. And the second thing that we're doing, one of the things that we heard from districts was that they wish they had more time in the application process. As you recall, that the legislation was passed in the summer. It was a very tight window, and applications were due September 1st. So this year, we're actually going to have 2 application windows to give districts extended chances to apply for this second window. Those that were accepted last year have 3 years. Then this year, we're going to start the applications in May and have a second round later in the summer. And we would anticipate, based on what we've heard from districts, that we'll have many more that are going to apply.
Have you been in conversations with PEMA, the Department of Health, with regard to planning for a potential pandemic and how we take care of our children and their education?
We've just started those conversations, and not only around education, but we have a number of other questions we're going to ask around the roles of schools when when this happens.
And do you view flexible instructional days, again, as a potential vehicle to address this?
I don't know if we could do that under law. However, providing opportunity for FAPE is something we will include as part of the conversation.